Good evening, everyone. Today's session is on while loop. We will be studying about how we use while loop, what are the examples, what are the applications, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages of while loop. So, one by one, I am going to discuss each concept. Before starting while loop, we must understand like in any programming language, like we have Python or we have C or we have C++. While using any language, any programming language, we must understand the syntax before using the loops or before using the different concepts, because the concept would remain same, only the syntax is going to be changed for different languages. Even like different concepts are like when we have our procedural oriented languages and when we have our object oriented languages, so we have different concepts also, but the basic part, like you may say the storage part may be different, but what are the data types, what are variables, what are identifier, case sensitivity would remain, or looping, iteration, if else statements, and number of things are there which would remain same for most of the programming languages, right? So I will be telling you the basics of while loop and how to use those loops in our different programs, right? So let's begin with the session. So first of all, before going into the detail, we have number of statements like flow of control. What are flow of control? When we have if statement and conditional statements, and if we have some iteration part in our program, like we want to iterate something, we want to implement any repetitive task. So why don't we have a recursion function, or why don't we have some for statement or while statement, do while statements even. So they have their own importance according to the usage. We basically use them, right? So today I'm going to discuss with the topic that is while statements or while loops. So before starting with while loop, first of all you need to understand these while loop, for loop or do while loop. They are they all are called the looping statements, right? Or they may be used in iteration of number of statements. So when we need some iteration of statements, we might be using some of the looping concepts. So let us start with while statement. The while statements allow you to it to repeatedly execute a block of statements. So you have some block of statements, so you have some line of code that needs to be repetitive number of times. And what is the number of times? That is given in the condition part, as long as the condition is true. So if your condition is true, then your loop will execute. If your condition becomes false, then obviously the looping part also gets stopped. A while loop is an example of what is called looping statement. Yes, that's what I told you. The while loop, the for loop, do while loop, they all are coming under what statement, which type of statement? That is called looping statement. A while statement can have an optional else clause also. So you have different expression, you have different syntax for while loop, right? Like in Python we have different syntax, in C++ we have different syntax, only syntax. A rest all is same, like how it works, right? How it execute the loops would remain same. Let us understand the basic syntax of while loop. So while is a keyword, this is a keyword, and then space, and then we write the condition, right? Whatever condition we have, like I is less than 10, or you may say while it is true, right? And then in Python you need to specify the colon part. In other languages we don't have, we have some different syntax. So after that you need to mention the colon part, right? Then after that you need to start with your body of while. The most important point while using the while loops or any looping concept in Python, we have the indentation part, right? Whatever is coming under the looping part, whatever is coming under the body of the while loop would be would be like coming using the indentation, or you may say spacing. So that would tell the compiler that these number of statements would be coming in the while loop, right? Let us see some more concept in this. In while loop, test expression is checked first. First it checks the condition. What is text expression? Test expression is a condition. The body of the loop is entered only if the test expression evaluates to true. So if your condition is true, then only it enters the block of statements, or you may say it enters the looping part. After one iteration, then again it checks for the condition. So this is how it, at every step, it is going to check the condition. This process continues until the test expression evaluates to false. So once, when your all the things are completed, when like your condition is satisfied, now we are moving to the false part. Like now the condition become false, now it come out of the loop, right? There is nothing like that key, uh, you need to specify we are coming out. Just don't use indentation in that case, right? So in Python, the body of the loop is determined through indentation. What is the most important part in specifying the statement? That is indentation, right? Then we have body starts with indentation, and the first indented line marks the end, right? So after that, like this is my first statement, this is my second statement, if it is coming under the using the indentation, Python interprets any non-zero value as 1, as true. So whenever you like putting some while 1 while 2, so it is interpreting non-zero values as what? That is true. And none and 0 are interpreted as false. So when you want to, when your condition become false, you can write false also, you can write 0 also, right? Both the meaning would remain same. The compiler could understand easily that your condition is false. Let us see how it works, how we have the flowchart for our while loop. So this is our text expression from where our condition is going to be start, right? That is while loop condition. So condition means when you are giving your test expression, right? After that, like if it comes true, the number of statements that are coming under the loop, right, it is going to be executed. For example, I'm talking about in the previous program, in the previous syntax, in the body of while, that means the condition is true, that's why you have entered into this body. So here we have true part. In this true part we have number of statements that is inside within the loop. And if your condition is false, then we will directly, we are not moving, we are not iterating anything, directly it jumps to the next instruction in the state, right? Next instruction in the program, or next statement in the program. It is not going to enter into the looping part. Now, this is another example that I have taken. While while you enter the condition, you have the test expression, and if your expression is true, then your body of while will be executed till at what uh, condition it ends. When the condition test expression gets false, then it comes out of the, or you may say exit out of the loop. So this is how we have while concept or while flowchart in our programming. Now let us see some examples. So there is an example of like we have used to we have written one program to add the natural numbers, right? 1 to n. So in this program, like we have number of things are there. Like you have the first part. Now these three first lines are taken as a comment. Now, when you are going to write any comment, you need to start with hash symbol that we have discussed earlier also. For writing the comments, we need to have the hash symbol. This is treated as a comment. Again, you have defined two more lines in the comment. To take the input, you need to take the user, you need to take from the user as an input, and take the any value from the user in an n variable, right? So it is like you have taken it as a comment Suppose we are not taking it as comment, this line you want to execute. So by default, if you are not putting the integer conversion to your input statement, it would be treated as your string part. You cannot perform manipulations, you cannot perform arithmetic manipulations on this input value. So for performing the manipulations, we need to have the conversion of the data type. By default, it is taking the string data type, and if we want to convert it, we need to have like integer, float, whatever we want to convert it, we can convert it with the help of that particular data type, right? Now we are taking this n value, we are taking the input and assigning it to the and storing the output input into the n variable, right? Now we have, suppose we have not taken from the user, we have taken from the, yes, we have taken as a constant, or you may say any variable is defined. So we may be taking a constant value, we may be taking a static kind of value for a n, because we are not entering through user, because here you may have noticed I have take it as a comment. So that's why in the next line we have defined n is equal to 10. Now what is, I told you we need to add all the natural numbers. So we need to have your summation part, a variable which is holding the sum. So here we have defined the sum variable, and it is initialized with a value that is 0. So nothing is there, no garbage value is there in the sum variable. We have the 0, we have initialized to sum variable. Then after that we have started with the looping concept. We have initialized the I with the 1 value. Why? Because we are starting the loop with 1. We are not going to start with the loop with 0, because it's our natural numbers. They are not whole numbers, right? So we have natural numbers. So we are starting with I is equal to 1, right? So 1 is less than equal to n. Yes, because n is here. If we are talking about I value, currently it is 1, and you have the value in n that is 10, right? So suppose 1 is less than equal to 10. Yes, the condition is true. Then it is going into the next part of the while loop. You may notice like this is the block of while loop, because it is following the certain indentation, right? And in the while loop you are defining a sum variable, and sum is adding the values of I, right? Then after that we are incrementing, we are updating the counter also. Why? Because if it is like no counter, it is going to print only the I value, that is 1111 10 times it is going to print. So that is of no use. We want to increment the value of I also, we want to increment the counter value also, right? So after this, once we have stored the summation of all the numbers till 10, then after that and we have included the 10th number also, because we have taken this condition as less than equal to n. So less than equal to n is 10 is also included, right? Then we are just printing the sum. Okay, so here comes the, now this the next statement is coming out of the loop, because it is not using any indentation, and you are just calculated, you have already calculated the values of sum, like all the natural numbers. Now the next thing is you are printing the summation, you are printing the total, right? Or, and then it is going to be like this would be an expression, and it is showing like which variable is holding your addition part, that is some variable. So this is how it is written, double quotes में whatever message you want to write it down, write it down. And if you have some variables, you can directly put commas, right? So this is how it works. Next we have is, we have pre-test loops, right? What are pre-test loops in Python? We have while loop and for loop. So pre-test loops are until and unless your conditions are not satisfied, it is not entering into the looping part, it is not going to iterate, right? Whereas when we have the post test loops, it is basically execute one time, then it checks the condition. So this is the basic difference with do while and while, but it's a pre-test loops in Python, right? So we have while, we have for also. What are the characteristics of that? Basically, the stopping condition is checked before the body it executes. So I told you, first it checks the condition before going into the body of the loop, before starting the iteration, right? And these types of loop execute zero or more times. So like, you may be, it is according to your condition, whatever. Like I have given, it is starting from 1 and ending till 10. So it depends on your type of loops. Okay. And again I'm repeating, pretest loops are those loops which first checks the condition and then it enters into the looping concept, like whatever you want to iterate. Okay. Then we have is like, why it is widely used, and why we have, what is the actual logic behind that, how it takes the condition, what are the parts of while loop. That is very very important. What are the parts of while loop? This type of loop can be used if it is not known in advance how many times that the loop will repeat. Most powerful type of loop, and the other type of loop can be simulated with the while loop. So this is the main advantage, you may say. When you don't know the condition, you may have to use while loop. It can repeat so long as some arbitrary condition holds true. So whenever your condition goes true, you can execute your loop. Now simple condition, when you have simple condition, you may directly write down the like initialize your counter, and then you write the expression or condition, and then you write the body of the while loop. Or like, suppose you have a compound condition. What is compound condition? Like suppose I want to search, I want to repeat the number of times, like while this condition, while your character is equal to small case y, or while this condition is equal to uppercase y, right? So both the expressions are holding the same conditions. So how I would be implementing this? This is capital, this is lowercase, and this is uppercase. So most of the time when you have boolean expression, when you have logical like operators in between them, or comparison operators between them, you may, mostly we have the logical operators when we use this kind of loop, right? So before, like when we are executing them, we can have multiple conditions, we can have compound conditions, and then it enters the loop. If it is satisfied with the condition, if your conditions are true, then only it is going into the body of the loop, right? Yes. So let us see one more example. This is, here we initialize the value of I, right? Where is my cursor? This is the value of, I have initialized the counter with 1, and it will be executed till 3, till we have the 3 times we need to execute this loop. And then what it is going to print? The value of I, 1, 2 and 3. And then we are incrementing the counter also at the same time, because otherwise it would be printing 1 1 1. What is the use of that? So I am going to print it 1 2 3 and so on. So suppose I have taken only I is less than equal to 3, so it would be printing till 3 only. And then it is, after completing this, it is going to print the final statement. The end of the program would be your done part, right? So this is, let us see how, what are the parts of this. In this, first we initialize it, then then it checks the condition, then it execute the body, then it update the control, and then it print up until your condition is satisfied. It is going to print the values of I, and after that it is going to print the value of, print what is that, done or finished. You may write any of the comment. Now let us see, I have taken one example from my Jupyter notebook. So what is that? I have taken, like we have taken the value of 3 in the previous program, we have taken it as 3. I have executed with 5. So this is our Jupyter notebook where I have compiled this program. So I have initialized the variable that is 0. I have not initialized it with 1. I have initialized it with 0. So my starting point would be 0. And then I am incrementing the I value of I, right? This is my I, okay? And then till what condition it is going to run? Till I becomes 5. And what you are going to do? Print the value of every time when it enters the loop. If the condition is true, it is going to print the value of I. That is I 0. First of all, when it starts, it is like this 0. Now it is going to print 0. Now 0 plus 1, 1. Again, move to the next iteration. Now your value is 1. 1 is less than 5? Yes. Now you have in your I 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So it is how it works. 0 plus 1 is 1, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, and then 5. So it works like this. And if you want to increase the units, like I have taken it as I is equal to I plus 1, you may take it I equal to I plus 2, you may take it I is equal to I plus 3. So it's up to you, right? How many number of steps you need to increment. Like it is by default, it would be taken as 1 only. Like you need to mention it, I is equal to, the unit would be 1. Now let us take some more another example that talks about code to print odd numbers from 1 to n. So yes, so it would be using a modulus operator, as we have discussed the different operators in our Python. So the first you have taken the value of n, right? Now this is here. So first you have taken the value of n. Now you have initialized the counter with 1. Now 1 is less than whatever is input in the n. Now why we have converted it into integer? I told you by default input functions gives you a string value. Now if you want to convert the string into the integer, you need to mention the type of data which you are going to have, right? So I would be taking integer, I am taking it as integer, and so that if I want to have float, I can write float here, right? Now I am going to write down the condition part. This is the condition part we have, right? And if my condition is true, like if it is coming into the loop, now it is going to check the condition of odd part. The condition of odd part. Now how I am going to check it for odd part? If I modulus 2 is equal to 0, that means it would be a even number. If your modulus is divisible by your remainder part is 0, it is divided by 2 and your modulus becomes 0, the remainder part of that value is 0, that means it would be a even number. So if it is 1, if it is has some remainder, then that means it is an odd number. So that's what how we have implemented the logic. And it is very very important to maintain the indentation part. So if is coming under while loop, and within while loop we have another statement. If the condition is true, you need to have this print statement, right? It is not within the I loop. It is within this condition, basically coming only when your condition, if condition is true, then only print part is executed, right? And then this is basically your while part. You are incrementing the counter and you are printing the values like 1, 3 and 5. This is how it is going to have in a program, the usage of while loop. Let us see some of the advantages and some of the disadvantages of while loop. So we have taken number of examples. Let us see what is the disadvantage, and then let us see what are the advantages. So on the left hand side, all the advantages are written, and on the right hand side, all the disadvantages are written, right? So let us start with that. A while loop is used to repeat a specific block of code an unknown number of times until a condition is met. So I told you, like suppose unknown means, what do you mean by unknown? If you are taking the condition, your n value from the user, right? So you are taking from the user and you are incrementing it till what number of times, as many as number of times whatever you have in the condition part, and until your condition is false you cannot come out of the loop. The loop is going to be executed. It provides code reusability. Yes, you need not have to write every time a new code and then you need to check it out. You may reuse your codes, you may reuse your while loops, right? Like there are number of statements which are going to be repeated in the program. So it, yes, so it provides code reusability. Using loops we do not need to write the same code again and again. Like I want to print the table of 2, right? Now 2 ones are 2, 2 twos, 2 twos are 4, 2 threes are 6. How many number of times I need to write? 10 times. If I would be giving through print statements, I have to write 10 print statements. To basically avoid the repetitive task, we have the looping concept. Using loops, we can traverse over the elements of data structures. Yes. So when we have data structures like arrays, like linked list, we can use the concept of loops only. For loop or while loop. Usually we use for linked list for loop, and usually we use while loops in other cases, right? Now let us see, these are some advantages. Let us see some disadvantages part. So while loop can cause the problem if the index length is incorrect. So if you have, sometimes it may be possible like you have given the length of the index incorrect, right? So it is not entering into the loop, or it may lead to infinite loop. So it depends on your condition, right? It is also slow as the compiler adds the runtime code to perform the conditional check on every iteration through this loop. So this could be the advantage also, and this could be the disadvantage also, because every time the compiler has to check the condition, then it moves, because you are taking the input from the user. So again it is going to check the condition, again it is you're going to check the condition. So how many number of times? So there are number of times it is going to check the condition and then iterate the loop. So I hope you have understood like why we are using while loop. There are number of advantages also behind that, why we are using the looping concepts, right? So in this part, like whenever we have loops like for loop or while loops in Python, or you may say in other languages also, we are basically have the same advantage. It is offering the you may say the reusability of code, it iteration of processes, no need to repeat your task, it automatically repeat your number of steps, right? So yes, what are pretest loop? I told you pretest loops are the loop which basically first checks the condition, then only it is going into the body of the loop, right? Like suppose I am talking about the while loop, why the most powerful looping construct. So I told you it is the most powerful because whenever like you have login modules in Gmail, or whenever you have some this kind of thing, internet banking, so it gives you three chances. So this is the concept of looping only. Maybe it is using for loop, maybe it is using while loop, right? Post test conditions are not there in Python, but you may have in other programming languages where we can use do while, right? Or once it is executed and then it checks the condition. But in this particular part, like in Python, we have only while loop and for loop, right? So these are the two powerful loops in our Python, and they are pre-test loops, right? So whenever you are like applying these loops, the number one thing is you need to understand the syntax, where we have to write down the column, what is the indentation part, otherwise your looping logic would be incorrect, right? So whenever you are taking, or you are taking some if conditions within your while loop, right? So it would be only possible when you know the syntax. So before starting with applying this while loop, you may have to understand the syntax that we just now have discussed in the class, right? So hope you have understood the session. Thank you.